What is going on, everyone? It's been a long time since I've made a video. The last video I did was the top 25, just talking about all the teams going into the season. In today's video, we're going to talk about my favorite team, just because I hate to kind of start it off because I don't want to constantly talk about my favorite team, but that's just what you're going to get on this channel sometimes. I definitely have some other teams I want to talk about, which I'll probably record a video for those teams after this. But if you're new here, my favorite team is the Carolina Tar Heels. So I just want to talk about why they suck right now. And I mean, the biggest thing is just we don't start any game with any type of emotion, with any type of energy. We are very, very lackadaisical, and it worked against, Kansas to some extent. And to me, the second half against Kansas was the only time we really looked good. I know you could talk about how we came back and beat Dayton, but it shouldn't have got to that point in the first place. And even then, I think that's just was a skill level thing. I think that Dayton had the X's and O's down, like they were running plays and they were able to just really do what they wanted with Carolina. I think that it was a skill gap, and that's how Carolina was able to get back in that game and eventually win that game. And honestly, Dayton was a foot on the line. Isaiah Likely from the Ravens earlier this year against the Chiefs. Kevin Durant with his foot on the line? Like, they were like that close to. Honestly, they probably would have took that game if he would have made that three. We didn't look good against Auburn. I can't remember, I'm sorry to do this, but I can't really remember the names of the other teams we played as far as like the lower tier teams. But we didn't look good against any of them either. A lot of times it just took until the last like 10 minutes of the game for us to kind of take off. But yeah, the only time I felt confident in this team and thought this team looked good was the second half against Kansas. But the end of the Kansas game, to me, really showed that we aren't quite there yet. So even then, even though Carolina looked good, it didn't seem as though, it showed that we obviously just didn't have what it takes to close that game. There was, last night against Alabama, who that's an exceptional team. Like, I honestly want to go back and see how the heck they lost 2 games, because that team won for years. And I might can even go into the end of the Roy Williams era for this, but we just allow way too many threes. We allow way too many threes. So I know I said we don't start off the game with any kind of energy, but even like our game plan, it doesn't seem like it's working. For years, we allow way too many threes, and we haven't had the guys like Elliot Cadeau, Seth Trimble. We haven't had guys like that to defend the perimeter the way we do now. So I don't understand how this is happening. I know a lot of times like they're picking on RJ Davis, which I love RJ Davis. There are some times where I just need you to show up. And those stats, I'm not an empty stats guy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that someone's stats are empty. But he has to work way too hard to get his stat line. It's not coming as easy. Heck, I would even go into last year. Last year, the game just seemed like it was a little easier for him. And now, I know you can say people are game planning for him more and they know what to expect for him more, so it's going to be harder. But still, like, he has to work for every basket. And it just doesn't seem like it's really impacting the game in a way. Like, there's some times he hit some timely shots, like I'm thinking about Dayton, but it's just he has to work way too hard to get the offense going. But we allow just way too many threes. We're unable to get him on the other end. Like, if RJ Davis really isn't hitting, then it is what it is. Ian Jackson, I think he's been playing very, very well. Jalen Washington, I don't know what's going on with him. He's not really defending the paint. We have no paint presence offensively. Defensively, doesn't matter. Lubin is our best bet, but for some reason Hubert Davis doesn't want to play him. And while I'm not in the camp yet of we need to look at Hubert Davis, I think that there is something to be said for just what is going on. Like, there's no way. This is the thing. With Carolina basketball, the one thing we should be able to hang our hat on, and really any big program, it doesn't have to be Carolina, but any big program, is that you are going to have to beat us. We're not going to beat ourselves. You're just going to have to be the better team. You're going to have to recruit better. You're going to execute better. And sometimes you may even just have to get more lucky than us to beat us. But in the Hubert Davis era, we've beaten ourselves for a while. Like, since even that national championship run where we, obviously lost to Kansas, and heck, even in that very game, we beat ourselves. We beat ourselves. Like, we got ahead on Kansas and let them come back and beat us. We let Alabama beat us last year in a tournament. Like, it's just, we turned down the NIT, which I know it's like Carolina, we're not supposed to play in the NIT, but still that season we beat ourselves. Like, we beat ourselves way too many times for me to count. Last night, I think we beat ourselves. Like I said, Alabama, phenomenal team. I love that team. That's a good team. Nate Oates is a great coach. Sears is a great basketball player. Holloway was good. I can't think of everybody's name. Stevenson, I thought, was good. Grant Nelson, he wasn't quite himself, but still he had a pretty good game. They just have a great team overall. Like, I can't take anything away from that team. And honestly, the way that team executed last night, I think that's one of the teams I can look at and say, nah, they probably would have just beat us, even if maybe we were at our best, but we gave them that game. And not to say they didn't take it. Like, we loosened up and they snatched it from us. I think that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm not trying to take anything away from Alabama. Like, that is what you're supposed to be when you're a good team. Like I said, against Michigan State is not as good as Carolina. But we let these teams kind of be in the game. We let these teams kind of be in the game, and we don't really snatch it from them. And that's what Alabama did to us. Like, they were like, this is a weak. They're playing like a weak team. They're not really, matching to our not mobility, but they're not matching to our effort. They're not matching to how hard we're playing. They can't match our execution. Like, we're out coaching it. Let's snatch the game from them. Like, they don't have anything on us right now. That might be their worst day, but let's make them pay for having their worst day. And that's what good teams do. And we're just not doing it. And, it would be one thing to say maybe we're not ready for the good teams, but we're not even ready for the so-so teams, the okay teams. Duke just beat Auburn last night, in which I thought was a really good game. Like, Auburn has nothing to hang their hat on. That was their first loss of the season. Playing Duke at home is tough. It's not like Duke is a bad team. Duke also, I feel as though, have beaten themselves, but not in the way we have. I think it's a lot worse for us. But there's some things that just definitely need to change. The biggest one is the effort. We got to come out the gate swinging, and honestly, I'm not looking forward to this game against Georgia Tech tonight, or not tonight, but this Saturday. I don't know when I'm going to be uploading this video, but I'm not looking forward to that game just because of the simple fact that we're just like a wounded animal right now. And Georgia Tech, for the last couple of years, have played us pretty tough at times, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could take this game from us. We just have to come out with more effort. Like, the X's and O's, you hope would come. Like, I'm confident in the ability of our players. I think there's some lineup changes that need to be made, but it's just that effort. We cannot start games off like that. We really cannot, and then expect to do anything, because then Hubert Davis can coach a masterclass in the second half, but it doesn't matter if we're constantly fighting down 12. And there's some things, I mean, like I said, it's not to say Hubert Davis is, not at fault. Like, there was times like last night, I can't remember after what play it was. I think after Ian Jackson got a steal and then went down and scored. We didn't. I thought that would have been, I think it was Seth Trimble, Elliot Cadeau, Jackson, and I can't remember the other two people on the court. But that was a time to where, I know RJ wasn't having the best game, but he's a much better offensive threat than the other guys. And that was a time, I don't care how tired he was. Like, that's a time where you bring in your three-point shooter. He's not the best. Like I said, he had a terrible shooting performance last night. But that's when, you're down 9-10. I think there was still like 7 minutes left. You bring in your score. Like, I understand that he may be tired. I understand that, you don't want to tire him out. But, like, it's like, look where we're at in the season, and two, it's just look where we're at in the game. Like, that's something, like, RJ Davis is a fifth-year senior. He understands that there's going to be times where you're just going to have to play your heart out. Like, he's done it plenty of times. We've seen him do it plenty of times. So I was just a little disappointed that we didn't get him in earlier. Now, I'm not saying it would have made a difference, but it's like I would have liked that look. So there's just things that Hubert Davis does with these rotations that I'm quite fond of, but that's not that's a part of the problem, but that's not the ultimate problem. The ultimate problem is just the effort. Like, that's really what it is. And is his message falling on deaf ears? Because we've seen, I really can't remember the team name, and I'm sorry. But it was a mid-tier team that we played at home. And I think we were up like 8 or 9 with very few minutes left. And then Cadeau tried to do an alley-oop, and the other team took it. And Hubert Davis was so animated and yelling, like, oh, we got to finish the game. And they even interviewed Cadeau after the game, and he said the same thing. And that's what Hubert said. But, dude, all the animation, like, it obviously is not working. You being that animated and being that upset, it's obviously not working because we start off games like we don't want to be there. So I don't know. That's my little rant for today. I wish I could talk more X's and O's. And like I said, I'm not taking anything from Alabama. They just were a well executed team. They may not have had their best game, even though it started off great. Like they played a great game. Don't get me wrong, but I've seen them play even better than that, which is crazy to say. But they just relished on all our mistakes. And that's what good teams do. Like, even if you're not having your best game, even if you're playing a worse team, like you make teams pay. And we don't do that, but Alabama definitely did that last night, and that's why they easily had that game. Like, there was no doubt in my mind they were going to win that game after the way we started, even when we kept flirting with, making a comeback. Like, Alabama, they were just so focused. They made mistakes, of course, on their own. I think they had a lot of turnovers, but we didn't make them pay. They made us pay for every single mistake. And a mistake doesn't have to be a turnover. It could be a bad shot. It could be bad rotation on defense. They made us pay in the press. Like, they just made us pay at every facet of the game. And that's what wins games.